Chrome Diggers here. So tonight we're going to be tying up an off spin I got from Joel's Jigs, which you can be purchasing these from joelsjigs.com. And I'll go over kind of the materials we're going to use tonight and use to create this thing. We'll start off by using a 16th ounce jig head here. For beads, we're going to be using a 6mm bead. I picked these up from P-Line, and these have all been pre-drilled out. To hold the beads in place, we'll be using this rubber tubing here. It's a soft, pliable tubing. I picked this up from strikeindicator.com. It's been working for me. It's strong, holds up. Second will be the rabbit fur. This is a fluorescent pink rabbit fur zonker strip. Picked this up at Sportsman's Warehouse, which is one of my local places here. They have great products, so I've been continuing to use them. Also, we'll be using a fluorescent UV marabou. I picked this up at my local fly fishing store here, Fit and Fire. Also, great product. Really like to use that. Another thing for the tubing, we'll be using this needle and with like a metal bead on it here, which I'll show you what that's for. This is just how I prefer to do it. Later I'll show you another method on how to do it if you don't have this. We'll also be using a 210 ultra thread. I prefer the 210, which is a thinner diameter, just for when you're tying smaller jigs. It just gives you less material on there, easier to work with. And of course we'll be using some head cement towards the end. So let's dive down to it. Okay, so we're going to start off here by getting our thread and nice base going on this one. On this particular one, I don't like to come too far back. Just pre the tip of the jig head here. We'll go ahead and come in and trim off our excess there, and I like to come back up front here. I'll go down ahead and I like to lay just a little strip of head cement down after I get my base down. After we get that down, we'll come back through and give it a nice wrap one more time so that cement's really stable in there. Okay, and at this point we're going to go ahead and grab our tubing here and our needle. And what I like to do is I just insert this needle right into the tubing just a little bit where I can still work with it. And then I'll come through. I'm going to get your lighter. And the trick I've found is when I'm heating this up, I don't like to get right on it, because if you get too on it, you'll burn it and the tubing will almost turn black. So you want to get almost the needle warm enough, and you'll see this tip of the tube here kind of swell up. So we're going to come in. I'm just working that down. And after you see it kind of get warm, I just drop this bead down right on it. And once that bead's just dropped right down on it, creates a nice little flare. So I might flare it out one more time here, heat it up, and drop the bead down. So if you didn't have this in place, another option would be to heat it and use your vise. So you can heat it and push it against your vise. That would be another option if you weren't using the needle and bead. So after we've flared our tubing out here, we'll go ahead and we'll grab our beads. And we're going to thread these beads on here. All three of them. And just go ahead and slide these all the way to the end there. And you'll see now that flare that we created is going to hold these beads into place. and keep them from coming off. So come down here, we'll kind of eyeball it out, see how much we need. And I like to start the beads where the starting point where they'll hit down right at the end of the base we made. So I'll measure, give myself a little bit of work room so that I can tie that into place. And after we have that, we're going to go ahead and take our little piece of blue marabou here, and you'll actually stick this right down the center of that tube and go ahead and pull it out from the other side until you get just a little tip of the feathers kind of hanging out. At that point here, I'll come down here, line up my tube. I'll give 2 kind of loose wraps, and on the third wrap I'll come around and pull pretty tight. Now I like to work up the tube. That's going to secure it all in place there. And it's kind of, the tighter you pull, you're going to see these beads start to naturally want to curl up. And that's good, that's what you're looking for. And then we're going to work all the way back down here towards the head. And you want to secure in down towards the head on both sides of this tail end of that marabou there, because we're going to go ahead and cut that out. And if you don't secure this down in place, that marabou could pull out of this tubing here. So once we've done that, we're going to come in, we're going to clean up this marabou. Get us a nice base to work with. At the next step, we'll go ahead and grab our pink strip of zonker cut rabbit. Now if you notice on this rabbit, the fur is naturally going one direction. So when we go to place this, we want to tie it in a way that the fur is naturally going back. So get your direction here. I like to come in, just take a few strands off so it exposes that leather strip a little bit so you can get a nice good bite. And I'm going to place it right on the side here, right below the beads. Once we got that tied in, I'll come up here, just throw a quick half hitch in. And at this point in time, if you don't have a rotary vise, you'll have to hand wrap this. But we are using a rotary vise today, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. So get it lined up nicely. And as you're going, you want to try to stroke the fur back so it's all laying nice and you're not overlapping. On this particular one, since this is such a small jig, we're only going to get about 1, maybe and a half turns out of this. We don't want it to be super thick. Once again, you want to be proportioned to the size of jig you're tying. That looks about good right there. So we're going to come up. I like to work the thread in through the fur so you're not picking up extra material that you don't need in there. Just go through a couple times, and then we're going to go ahead and trim real close on the fur here. So go ahead and just stroke the fur back. You're going to see that little tail end of the leather right there. And when you come through, you want to grab that tail end of that leather and really pull it down tight and secure that all into place right there. That way it doesn't walk out on you. Get a few turns on it. And then I'll come back with my whip finishing tool here. If you don't have a whip finishing tool, you can do 10 to 12 half hitches. I use about 10 whip finishes here because I prefer to use head cement. Get that nice and secured there. And then we'll come back and put a drop or two of head cement on the threads there. And then come back through and trim this. Now, a little technique I like to use when I'm finishing off, I don't like to come in and cut it. I like to put a little down pressure on there, and you're just pushing the scissors into it, and essentially it's just going to cut itself on the force. There you have it. A wing dinger. Chrome digger's out.